Ask anyone why their side hustle failed, and they will tell you the same thing. They ran out of motivation. They weren't consistent enough. They didn't want it badly enough. It's almost always a version of that answer. Some self-directed criticism about not being the right kind of person. I wasn't disciplined enough. I wasn't hungry enough. I wasn't built for it. But I want to push back on that. Not because it's always wrong, but because in most cases I think it's pointing at the symptom and missing the cause entirely. The reason most side hustles fail isn't a character flaw, it is a structural problem. And structural problems have structural solutions. Let me show you what I mean. Here's what the first 90 days of most side hustles actually look like. Week 1, you have high energy, you made a decision, there's momentum in the novelty of it, you work on it, things actually get built. Weeks 2 and 3, you're still moving, but the excitement has settled a bit. You're in the actual work now, the part that maybe isn't as interesting, but it still is necessary, so you keep going. Month 2, you look at the results, and the results are small, maybe even non-existent. You've been putting in real hours and the output doesn't reflect it yet. So the gap between effort and reward starts to feel uncomfortable. By month 3, that gap is still there, and it could be even wider. So you start skipping sessions. Not because you decided to quit, just because it's easier not to open the laptop today, maybe. And then one day you notice you haven't worked on your project in 3 weeks. That story is so common it's almost a cliche, but here's the question nobody asks. Why does that gap between effort and reward exist? And maybe even more importantly, can we avoid it? The answer is yes, but only once you understand what's actually causing it. The culprit is something called a feedback loop mismatch. Every human brain runs on feedback. You do something, you get a signal about whether it worked, and that signal tells your brain whether you should do it again. So this is the engine behind habit formation, motivation, and consistency. It's not a personality trait, it's just basic neuroscience. So most things we do in daily life have short feedback loops. You send an email, you get a reply. You cook a meal, you eat it. And, well, you know immediately if it was good or not. You have a conversation, you get the reaction, perhaps in real time. The loop closes quickly, and your brain gets the signal. Now, when we have side hustles, they have mostly long feedback loops. You write a blog post. You don't know for weeks whether anyone read it. You record a video. It might get 8 views in the first month, and you have no idea if those 8 people cared. You build a product. Maybe even one person buys it. Maybe nobody does. The signal is delayed or missing entirely. So your brain, running on a system designed for fast feedback, keeps reaching for a signal that isn't there. And when the signal doesn't come, it interprets that as failure. It is not too early to know failure. And it responds accordingly. It pulls back, reduces effort, finds reasons to do anything else. And this isn't weakness. It's not even a lack of discipline. This is your brain doing exactly what it was supposed to do in an environment it was designed for. And I know this from the inside. I watched myself do exactly this. Working on something consistently for a few weeks and then quietly drifting away from when the numbers didn't move. And the story I told myself was that I lost interest, maybe it wasn't the right fit, maybe I'll come back to it someday. But I don't think that was true. I think I was checking analytics 3 times a day, hoping for that signal. And when the signal didn't come, my brain started looking for an exit. The uncomfortable part is that the projects I abandoned, they weren't necessarily bad ideas. I believe some of them probably would have worked, given more time. I just couldn't override the feedback loop long enough to find out. And that's not a motivational failure, it's an architectural one. I had built something without accounting for the gap, and then acted surprised when the gap swallowed it. So, if the problem is structural, the fix needs to be structural too. And there are 3 things I think actually help here, and none of them are just stay motivated. The first one is building your own short loop feedback. If the external signal is going to take months, you need internal signals that are faster. Not like vanity metrics, real ones. Did I publish this week? Yup. Did I show up? Yup. Did I do the thing I said I'd do? Yes, sirree. Those signals close the loop in days instead of months, and your brain can work with that. The second one is decoupling output from outcome. At least for the first 6 months. That's what I would suggest. The work is the metric, not the result. The result will come later, but in the early phase you have to build a system where doing the work is what counts as winning. Track your inputs, not your outputs. Hours, posts, experiments, not revenue or followers or clicks. And the third is designed for the long feedback loop explicitly. Know going in that the signal will be delayed. Not as a motivational speech, but actually setting that expectation for yourself. In month 1, I will probably see very little. That is normal and expected. So when that gap arrives, it doesn't feel like failure, it just feels like a normal day. None of this is magic, but it changes what you're optimizing for. And that in itself changes everything. So here's the experiment for this week. If you have a side project, either an active one or an abandoned one, write down the answer to this question. What is the earliest signal I could use to know this is working? Not revenue, not audience size, something you can measure in 1 week. Maybe a word count, a publish count, a number of people you reached out to. And then, separately, write down the realistic timeline before the external signal arrives. Will you give yourself 6 months, a year, 2 years? Most people have never written those things down at the same time, and seeing the gap on paper does something. It removes the surprise. And when the gap isn't a surprise anymore, it stops feeling like a failure. And that's the whole experiment. Take 10 minutes, a piece of paper, and just do it. So that's everything for this video. If any of this resonated, maybe if you recognized yourself, then I'd be curious to hear what you're working on. The comments are open. And next week we are going to take an even deeper dive into this subject. So I will see you then.